The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people were evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, the group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Hello everyone, my name is Dane. I am here, joined today with Lou from Two Pineapples. Philip is on vacation. Hey Lou, how you doing? Yep, we are going to be doing a little bit of an update today. Lou, can you hear me? Yeah, you're still muted.
All right, how we doing there?
All right, how you doing?
That's good.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. We got a little bit of a special little presentation for you. Again, Philip is on vacation, so we're going to go back over the end of the eruption, essentially, and try and sum it up. It was a short little eruption, less than 2 weeks. You were up there every day, weren't you, Lou, essentially? Or were you there every day?
Every single day.
Every day.
The only day that we didn't get any. Did I lose you again?
Nope. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. So the only day we didn't get any actual lava shots was the day we got rained out. So we just did a park tour at that point.
Oh, right. Yeah, the weather conditions up there were really good for this whole thing, really. But
yeah, like 99%.
yeah, I mean, the first days we were up there, day and night, it were some of the best conditions I've ever seen. Even the wind was cooperating. So yeah, we're going to go through first. We're going to go into a little bit of an update, provide the latest information on this thing, and then we're going to dive into recapping this eruption and show some of the footage that Lou was able to collect, as well as many of the people on Hawaii Tracker. We have so many fabulous contributors. We'd like to highlight some of them today. All right, so first, let's go into our volcano summary. This is your Hawaiian volcano summary for the week. Philip Ong is away, so I will be filling in for him. And this week, the real story is the eruption of Kilauea inside the Halema'uma'u crater has come to an end, or at least paused, right? We can't say it's come to an end until a certain amount of time has passed, that time being 3 months roughly. Right now, there is no lava at the surface, and most of the glow is quickly fading away as fast as it can inside what remains of that active part, that most recently active part of the lava lake. So we can show you how quick this whole eruption came to an end. It came to an end really just between the 18th and the 19th, mostly in the afternoon of the 19th. And you can see here on the left, that's on the 18th, and on the right is the 19th. Here we have a satellite loop from Cosme, who is using Copernicus data and sent from the Sentinel hub. And you can just see that difference between hours between the 8th and the 9th, essentially, how quickly the signature has faded away. We're going to take a look now at the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory daily update. And essentially, it's saying everything is essentially calm up there. The summit eruption at Kilauea volcano is paused following a rapid decline in vent and lava lake activity Monday afternoon. All recent eruptive activity was confined to Halema'uma'u crater within the summit caldera of Kilauea, and no unusual activity has been noted along the volcano's east rift zone or southwest rift zone. That's really, what we're looking for at this point is it trying to get outside of that summit region? Right now, it's still in the summit region. We do have a new measurement of SO2 that at 175 tons per day. That's still rather significant, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually more background eruption, no eruption happening levels that we'd see post 2018 eruption and post many of the eruptions since then. All right. So I do want to share some time lapses of this ending sequence. We can see, it started back at the 15th. So we can see that it's already consolidated. It's in a somewhat crescent shape, or even that's fallen. We have activity in that inner lava lake from the previous eruption still, but it's slowly starting to withdraw. But this thing, unlike some of the previous eruption, it comes to an end rather quickly. The eruption is more similar, in my opinion, to the 2018 eruption ending sequence, where you start seeing the variability in the fissure height, the erupting lava coming out of it, high periods where it could be considered a pulse or a surge, essentially, and that was the indication in 2018 that the eruption was losing its vigor. So here it ended up coming to a halt rather quickly, similar to 2018, whereas the previous 3 eruptions up at the Kilauea caldera, they've really drawn it out to the point where it's barely erupting, essentially. And that was the essentially the eruptive sequence for the entire eruption there. And right now we are waiting to see what comes next, but we do know from the previous eruptions that it is possible that lava could come to the surface again and that not be the sign of the eruption resuming. That would be more of a gas event and depressurization. It manages to seep to the surface. That has happened and not signify that the eruption was resuming. We're more looking for that eruptive tremor to say that it's coming back in any capacity. And that's your Hawaii volcano summary for the week. All right. Well, we have some videos from USGS. Let's just show those real quick. These are pretty new. This one was from June 16th. And we can just see an overflight, and you can see that it's still active over on that western wall. And we're going to have a little bit of a special. That's what me and Lou are going to go into a little bit more, is that western wall fissure, because that really was, to me at least, the story of this eruption, or at least the highlight. That thing was really cool to see, and to watch it grow. And we'll be able to talk about that much more. But here, the large part of the eruptive surface here is already hardened by this point, or at least the surface has. Remember, this thing takes for a long time to harden fully. The surface layers will harden rather quickly, but you get a few feet down, and then you get back to that gooey, mushy, molten lava, and this layered cake that we have that is this lava lake with now, 4 layers of lava and all kinds of goo in the middle. So when nobody really knows how each eruption impacts the previous layer, so this whole thing is a lot of chaos in there. To try and envision it is like a conceptual art piece. And then finally, or then next, we have the western vent, a little bit of a close-up that USGS released before it was turned off. And it was really just a great place for it. This is, what do you say this, let's see when this was taken. The June 18th, so the day it turned off. And what do you think, Lou? What you were seeing, all those fluctuations, right? You were the one that was pointing out to me where it was seemingly, it sounded like when you're describing it, the pulses are essentially where it had these periods where it start much more vigorous. And how long essentially would those last? Would be my question to you.
So while we were up there for anywhere from 3 to 8 hours during the day, we'd see them come in spurts of 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and then just
Interesting.
Drop down.
That would put them right in the middle of what the delineation between what we would call a pulse, which was like 5 to 10 minutes they lasted, and a surge, which was like 50 minutes, maybe like to an hour and 30, something along those lines.
That's kind of what we were seeing on a consistent, and it was consistent every day like that.
Right.
The entire time until that middle, like third of the phase through, where we just lost everything within the caldera and drained out, and we were just chasing just small pools or small river here and there, because the fountain had pretty much shut down at that point. It was just trickling. But then every once in a while we'd get that next big 30-minute push, and we would be right back in it again.
Right. So here we are looking at some monitoring data. We'll just briefly glance at this. We don't have Philip with us today. We're hoping he's enjoying his vacation. But with the eruption coming to an end, we've seen this song and dance before, so we'll just go through, and look at some of the data. We do have a bounce back happening along about the mid-19th, a little bit late afternoon, and we start to see that inflationary trend beginning at the summit again. And that would be right after the eruption ended, so it ends, it starts inflating again. This is the story that we do. It depressurizes to the point where the eruption ends, and then we start building pressure again, and then we play the game of, can it find storage space underground, or does it come back to the surface? And that period before this eruption took longer than the eruption itself. We were playing that song and dance for a month and a half at least, maybe 2 months, where we were like, oh, it's building, oh, it found more room underground, right? Oh, it's building, it found more room underground. And then the eruption happens, it didn't find room, it got to the surface, we get a spectacular eruption to go see, but it's still not all that high of pressure, enough to continue going, so we're back to it's finding more room underground. And the question I have at this point is, what point does it try and get outside the caldera, right? What point do we start seeing those signs where it starts trying to get out? But as of right now, it seems it's able to get out, it's able to still erupt. This eruption, it went up through much of that eruptive surface that we were talking about, that lava lake that initially started it. Here we can
Dane, that was probably the second biggest question that we would get every day was, is it going to get out of the caldera? Where's it going to go? Is it going to hit a rift zone? Is it getting out of there? Other than the biggest question was, when it just sunk into the caldera, where was it going? That's probably the number one question that we had over the last 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, just to address that second one, the where is it going? Well,
Right.
it's a thin surface that you're looking at, with that it's hardened. Everything underneath it, just under that thin crust, is still molten and still circulating and still moving. And so where does it go? It just rejoins the majority of the lava, which is still in a molten state, which is just below that crusted surface. Right? All that's still there. So we saw one of the previous eruptions where it was looked like just a skylight we were able to see, because it was just able to circulate from one end back down into the other so cleanly. All right, so I think that does it. Let's look at a little bit more data. SO2, we can see it dropping off. We can see it spiking with the beginning of the eruption up to potentially 70,000 tons of SO2 per day, or a little bit over, showing on this. And that is that's the beginning of an eruption right there. And we quickly fall off, as all eruptions do. The SO2 correlates very well with the vigor of the eruption, with the flux of the eruption. How much lava is coming out? The more lava, the more SO2, generally speaking. And right now, really, we're looking to see what's happening in the rifts. We don't see anything happening in the rift on the GPS. And really, we're still looking to see if it tries to get outside the caldera. Right now, it doesn't seem to be doing so. We have some thermals here. This was before the eruption on May 23rd. And we can see that footprint of the lava. This will be a little bit important later. And boom, the eruption starts. We get the entire floor of this thing filled in rather rapidly, didn't it? Like, you were up there as soon as you could get up there. And was the floor entirely filled in by that point?
Yeah, it took us about 40 minutes from the phone call to on the ground. It was probably about 40 minutes, and the entire floor was covered. Didn't take long at all. I mean, quick. And that's pretty typical, right? I mean, the last couple we've seen, it just covers the entire floor. Right. And then it's just vents blowing everywhere, and then begins the receding 2 to 3 days after that. Pretty typical of everything we've seen in the past.
Yes. And so it fills in very vigorous, and by even the next day, we have a dramatic cut in the activity going on up there. But it just starts so strong that it can't keep that pace, right? The bubble burst, essentially, and it's not going to continue. That initial outburst is the highest volume for these summit eruptions. So once it starts dying off, here we go on the 8th. We transition a little bit, and this is the day that we were talking about earlier, where it really cut in the amount of surface area of that lava lake. Some of the vents cut off that were on the eastern section, eastern area of the lava lake, and everything consolidated west.
Coming from a videographer's point of view, we're looking at it as this is the end. Right. Everything has pulled back. We see that horseshoe developing. We see the holes start forming. The ponds are emptying out. From behind the lens look, it's like we see here it comes. It's about to end.
Right, and it's interesting because the last 3 eruptions, they went into this period where it's like, oh, it's cutting off dramatically. Okay, and then it would enter a steady state where it's still technically erupting, but barely. Right, we're talking about the eruption right now as 175 tons SO2 per day. We're saying that correlates to the eruptive volume. We're talking about like it's erupting, but it's only like 400 tons SO2 per day, or 350 or something like that. It's like really not that much more compared to when you have an eruption going and you're in the thousands to 10,000s tons of SO2 per day categories. So
even 100,000.
Right, when you get extreme.
Right? To start off.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a little bit of a special here now lined up for you. And we want to focus on something that Lou and I were kind of I don't know, there were probably other people that noticed it, but we were the first ones to point this one out, because we were there and we started seeing this thing as soon as it started and pointing at it, being like, hey, that western wall. Do you see that? What's that? That doesn't look like just a splash that's happening. It looks like it's trying to...
We both kind of looked right over there at the same time, and you looked at me and you're all, do you see that? I'm like, oh yeah, I see that too.
Yep.
It was like right there in our face, which wasn't easy to see if you weren't really panning the whole caldera, because there was so much fog moving through that section. The whole caldera from the northeast was pushing across the caldera, and that was over in that southwest corner. So you really had to catch it at the right time.
Right. If it wasn't for the eye care Hawaii glasses, there's 0% chance I would have seen that thing.
Hey,
0%.
me too. Right there.
Yeah, so we saw it and we just started tracking the thing, right, and keeping an eye on it because, hey, Philip and I, for people that have been watching these updates, we were talking about this potentially being possible, that it could try and climb the walls of the caldera this time. There's so much goop inside the caldera, so much complexity, so much density. It's getting harder and harder to come up through there, essentially. And would it be easier to crack the rocks in the adjacent area, which are already probably fractured, and provide a pathway of some kind? And then we saw this, and we got to see that play out, essentially. And that was really cool to be, to talk about it before it happened, but having the potential for that to happen, and then seeing it happen at the very beginning. And then I remember I came back and checked it a little while later. We had meetings to go to, so we started doing those. I checked it a little while later on your stream, and it's like, oh, wow, it is trying to climb the wall. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was the really cool part, like for what we're doing, where we're standing there for hours and hours and hours, just watching it grow. I mean, we were there the whole eruption, so we watched every foot. And of course, we came home and slept for a few hours and then went back. But we'd go back and there's another 6 feet, there's another 7 feet, and just got to watch this entire development. It was amazing. It was really an amazing time to watch that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go, Lou was so kind to make up a little compilation of this west wall fissure and his days up there every day of the eruption.
And as a caveat, this isn't everything. There was so much footage,
right, that
there's not enough time in the show to really put it all together.
Right.
But these are some of the highlights of the growth.
This is just a rough cut type of thing. This is just in time-lapsed order, essentially, or in sequential order, so we get an idea of how this thing progressed. So that photo we just saw was our first instance of it, our first interaction of seeing the thing. And then I left, and you started tracking this thing more and more. I'm going to go ahead and just play this video now. Yeah, we can see it's already climbed up. This was, what, an hour or two later?
Yeah,
it was already climbing up the wall. And then you could see the gas. The gas kept climbing higher and higher above where the lava would come out. So you'd know, like, it's still climbing, because the gas would start puffing up little bits just above where it would move to.
We knew where it was going. At this point here, we knew where it was going.
That was going to be the focal point, you thought?
Yeah, pretty much. We kind of knew it. Which wasn't how the eruption started. Right.
It just makes sense that would have less resistance to me, at least conceptually, because you do have pressure from that active lava lake that you're trying to penetrate through or pressurize to run through, whereas if you're on the side of it and in the rocks that's cracked and making a new path, once that path is established, it becomes almost natural that would be the area that it would consolidate towards.
But there were so many vents all through the caldera. It was really hard the first few hours to really pinpoint until you and I started spotting that. Then it was just obvious.
Yeah, the beginning was crazy, though. You had major fountains inside of the center of that lava lake. That's how the whole thing started. But right in here, we're just focusing on this development of this cone, because that was really the highlight visually, right? It was high enough that you could see it from practically every angle around the caldera.
Everywhere, yeah, pretty much 200 degrees all the way around the caldera. And we filmed so much of all the other vents for so many years now, we haven't really had this opportunity as an individual, other than what USGS puts out, to actually be able to see it. So this was the highlight, 100%. Right. Even 2 years ago, when we'd hike in on the other side, the east side of the caldera, and we could catch the vents, they were already blown open by that point. There were nothing like this.
Right. This one, it got the ability to grow a cone with the support of the wall, essentially, there, to build off of it. And that allowed it, and it really was able just to get that features, that height really gave it such such dramatic views. I mean, just look at that upboil on the right. That thing is awesome in and of itself, but you have it alongside this giant fissure that's running down this really steep channel into that big collection point.
You know, this was an eruption too where we switched gears at one point and we were getting all the video, but everybody was really curious about the audio. So we started tuning in our shotgun mics to try to dial in more audio. And that's something completely different. There was a lot more just jet sounds and not explosions, but just funnel of wind and gases. Completely different than what we've heard before.
Right, you were able to capture it pretty well, because my complaint always about the audio is that you want, you know, people are like, I want to hear what the volcano sounds like. I'm like, all right, so it's going to sound like helicopters are flying behind you, and the wind is like 40 miles an hour, and it's just blowing out the microphone, and like that, you know, like
tough,
there's people talking behind you. Somebody's taking a phone call to your left. That's what it sounds like. You know,
it's really tough.
It's tough to capture the audio.
We've really worked hard behind the scenes to try to dial in as best we could, because it was important. Everybody wanted to hear it, and we wanted to share that with everybody. I'm glad we were able to put something out.
Yeah, definitely. It's really hard to capture that stuff.
And
And
these are great shots, man. These are so far back too. This was at Waldron's. No, this wasn't at Waldron's. This was up at Kilauea Lookout. That's like 1.5 miles back. But it was still close enough that every single person up there with a cell phone could take amazing video and amazing pictures. It was quite the moment for somebody that's never experienced this before. And even though we would try to keep moving away from the groups of people and get into our own little spot, it was still amazing to listen to people who've never seen this before or experienced it, the emotions that they went through. It was quite the eruption.
Yeah. Short one though. I mean, I think you would have burnt out if you went any longer. So you probably
I told you before earlier. I'm like, I don't know how much longer. 13 days in a row of 17-hour days. You know, Anna and I really stretched ourselves out on this one, big time.
Yep, that's where the 2018 eruption was just like so crazy. The 3 months of that craziness, and I don't even know how I did that one type of thing.
It'll wreck you hard.
It's just you're running on fumes for a month plus at that point, or a week plus, just fumes.
Yep.
But yeah, it was interesting to see the place that it came out of. If I had to have bet, you know, if it was gonna pop up on the side wall somewhere, I would have bet more south, a little bit more south than this.
I wouldn't have picked this. Matter of fact, we were, if you look back at some of the films that we'd done, maybe about a month or so prior, we were looking at the sulfur on that south wall, more to the southeast of it, because that's kind of where we were anticipating some type of action.
Right.
So this was not where we picked.
So where are we looking at here? With the lava overflowing, it looks like, from a perch pond.
Going into the pond.
So it's a perch pond flowing into a lower pond, essentially.
Right. So the perch pond up top, and then the lower pond, that's been there for the last couple of years now. That's what's flowing into that. That was the very last morning of the eruption, and we just caught it by chance. We weren't planning on going up till 4:30 or so, but we woke up at 2 and we just went up anyway. And this was going on right there. So that's flowing over into that pond. But here's the interesting thing. Nothing held. This is another one of those, $1 million questions that we kept getting asked. Where is it going? Is it going into the abyss? Is it going into back into the magma chamber? We would see just this massive amount of lava bergs flowing through there, just cascading in, but it never held.
Right. The lava bergs, I assume, just collect on the surface, but everything else would seep back through and back into that giant pit below. Interesting thing about these lava, these perch ponds, when they do overflow, sometimes you'll have a wall breach. I didn't exactly see a big wall breach, maybe a little tiny ones on the top, but it seems more like it collected, it got higher than the wall itself, kind of like how water will inside of a glass. And then once it gets past that threshold, then you have a decent outburst, and it flows off until it essentially goes back to that level that it won't. But yeah, really good to capture that. That's awesome capture, just to be looking right there at that time.
There were some interesting highlights other than just the cone blowing the whole time. We really tried to move around and capture some different things that are happening. It's a huge caldera. There's always something happening somewhere. And with the multicam opportunity that we have, the options that we have, we can focus around and kind of explore as the eruption's going on.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Just so awesome to watch that just come over the top like that and be able to flow down, and be able to bring that to people live is something awesome, with the...
That's a whole nother one right there. I mean, there's only so many people that are going to go up there and be able to watch this, whether you don't live here or you're just unable to. So to be able to put that out for everybody to witness it feels good for us to be able to bring that to everybody.
So we're getting now later into the eruption. This would be the day that it essentially shut off. Is that?
Yep, that's the last minutes that we were up there, and then that was probably 8 o'clock in the morning, and we came home, and by 4 o'clock the pipes were done.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it has a clean entry point back down into the depths, essentially, down there.
Yeah, that's the upper little.
The upper drain.
To it as the jacuzzi or hot tub. That's what everybody was calling that, above the other pond, right above it.
Yeah, it's just like that. The previous lava lake, that inner lava lake, where it was just flowing in from the west and exiting out the east, and would accompany that perfectly. So it just stayed in a steady state, essentially. For months it did that. But this one, it really shut off rather quickly, right? Talk about the fluctuations that you were telling me about up there, where it would surge or pulse, essentially.
Yeah, so we went through anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes of different surges of just gas blowing through. And then we would also see throughout the caldera, sometimes we would just have we'd have two screens going. So you would see somewhere in the caldera as well as the cone going on. And that's where we used one of the screens just as exploratory. You would definitely see the foundering that was going on out there. It would just be silver because it's daylight. So you really couldn't see any red glow, but you would, you'd see just moments of just everything pushing through. And the next surge of lava would come through, and that would be on the outside, or off of the fountain, you'd see the dome that was down at the bottom pushing that river across, and then all of a sudden it would just push in through that pond, or there was a levee there. We saw that break one day.
Right.
And it was every 30 minutes to an hour, something was going on. It was really hard to leave. We left out of exhaustion at times. It was just like, all right, everybody, we got to cut this. We are beat up out here.
Right. That's the thing people don't get out there is you're in the elements when you're out watching this thing. You got decently high winds. It can get cold up there. It's high enough, dry enough that things like your lips are going to chap up real quick.
That was probably one of the first times ever I really had a problem. It was 3 days in, and we came down off the mountain, and I was driving down, Anna and I were coming home, and I just started having a nosebleed.
Yep.
And it was, and it wasn't anything really super medical with the SO2 or anything like that. It was just wind, cold, dust, heat, just everything in my face for hours and hours and hours. It'll get you.
Yeah. It's not quite as extreme as like the saddle during Mauna Loa, but it will still get you.
Oh, still get you.
Yep. So now we want to do something a little bit different. I have here lined up some posts from Hawaii Tracker. I know there's a lot of people that go from our YouTube on Hawaii Pod and go over to Hawaii Tracker and vice versa. But we really want to highlight some of the photographers that we have on Hawaii Tracker because they really came through in this eruption. Did some special things. I mean, just before we get into this, tell the story that first morning we were looking at that western vent emerging on the wall, and we get a message from another one of our colleagues who says, "Hey, I'm in the next chopper up. I'll be there in 10 minutes," type thing. And we start getting footage sent down from the chopper of the areas that we're looking at, and then showing them on your stream a little bit too, and reviewing those while we're sitting on the ground live streaming as well, using multiple camera angles.
Camera up to you're
Right.
putting your phone up, but Andrew Hara up there, up in the copter, like they're airborne right now.
Yeah, that was Andrew Hara flying with Paradise Helicopters. We'll see some footage from him as well.
Right.
So here we just have a collection of posts. I'm not going to blow a lot of these up, but I do want to just highlight these. Again, if you want to see these, all these are available on HawaiiTracker.com, or not Hawaii Tracker, Hawaii Tracker Facebook group. That's where everybody is sharing all of these photos and their stories, and we had some really good stuff, so we wanted to just take some time to highlight that. So we start out with Don Stringer with a early morning, or late night, photo of that first day. So we see the entire eruptive vent happening and covering the floor of the lava lake. And this was shot with a 3,000 millimeter lens. Oh, no, this was not. He has more. We'll see those too. This is from Forrest. And he's like, after almost a year of living on the big island of Hawaii and missing the past Kilauea eruptions and even the Mauna Loa eruption, opportunity to see some of the lava. With not a cloud in the sky, the stars were brilliant as ever. It was absolutely amazing experience, and I hope to see more eruptions in the future. And we have, some great shots that are being shared, and these things were just blowing up too, getting so many, views, and it was incredible to watch, especially since we were so busy trying to do things to have all these guys come in and be able to provide these photographs in a steady stream, right?
We're all doing so much, it's great that everybody is pitching in at all different levels, so we don't miss anything.
Right. There we have one from Linda, Pele kicking up her heels. So yeah, this is just that first day where we have that entire lava lake. I haven't seen any good photos other than the photos that were the cameras set up by USGS, like the KW camera, where they were able to catch that sequence of the lava expanding across the floor and taking the lake, filling in the lake. It happened rather quickly. Here we have one from Wade, and on Wednesday, June 7th, Halema'uma'u crater began erupting with large volumes of lava. The floor quickly filled, creating a lava lake. This image is a panoramic photo of the entire caldera taken at sunset. Thank you, Wade. Yvonne is a frequent on Hawaii Tracker, and she makes some amazing content. She was there. She tried to be there as much as you, Lou, type of thing.
Yeah, I know, she did. We saw her one night, but we were on the move away from everybody,
right?
And she's working too, so she has to get into a busier, easier access to film where Anna and I can hike back another 10 minutes away from everybody. So, we see Yvonne all the time. She does some great stuff. She's a monster hiker and gets those pictures up on Mauna Loa and everywhere else. So she's something special, that woman.
Yep, some amazing shots coming from her. Zarin, I like this shot. This looks like it's over from Waldron's, essentially. Is that right?
Looks like it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's just such a cool angle to be. It looks early on in the eruption, we have the entire lava flow, so 6/7, the day of the beginning. And with the clouds out there, it's just so cool. Like, this thing was so photogenic. We were talking about how this was going to be the eruption to photograph, and it did not disappoint at all on that front.
And Waldron's is such an underrated location.
Oh, I know.
I mean, nobody's ever there, and I'm probably blowing it for everybody like us that love to go over there. It's 2 miles back, but I mean, when the sun comes up and you have that eruption and the birds are waking up,
right?
And
I think it tricks people in that, like, you think you're at Waldron's and the view sucks, and then you have to keep going a little bit until it opens up. Like, when you first get there, you're like, this is what everybody's talking about. I'm out of here. Why did I come? And then you have to go to, like, the end of the trail. And then you're like, oh, yeah. So that was Zarin. I appreciate that, Zarin. Here we have Andrew Hara, and this is, one of our staple photographers. Andrew has been with us since 2018, has put in some really good and really heavy work. One of the most professional photographers I know. And he was up with the Paradise Helicopters with Bruce Amori and Mick Calber. Appreciate Paradise Helicopters for helping us get in the air, right? Because getting somebody a photographer in the air immediately after the eruption starts, that's expensive stuff, and they do that as a service basically for the community. We really appreciate Paradise Helicopters. Yes, and Andrew does such great shots.
This was a conversation that myself and some other professional photographers and videographers up on the summit talked about how difficult that is, and it makes it look so easy. Like you can just go up with your Canon and take some pictures and get this. You're in a moving helicopter. I mean, there's a lot going on.
And he's also transmitting to me as he's taking them, type of thing. Right. So after he takes the video or the photo, we have it so it automatically transfers over, so we have it immediately. And this was what we had to do in 2018 just to be able to actually work with the choppers, to be able to have somebody in a chopper and be able to do something with it, because often we found out, like the helicopter in that situation where everything was crazy, the helicopter pilots didn't know exactly where to go, especially the ones that weren't super familiar. If you weren't flying with like, Paradise or one of those guys that really knew that what was happening, you would have to direct it essentially and tell them like, hey, something new is happening over here. Can you guys go check that out? And be able to try and correct it. But yes, Andrew does a fantastic job. Great professional.
It's amazing. It's amazing photography and videography.
Yes.
Right?
So we have some more photos from Eric, and this is some really great stuff too. I was going through these. These are some great shots. And by the time I arrived on the Kilauea and the eruption on day one, it had subsided quite a bit. The ground images were shot on day one on the 7th in the evening, and the aerial images were around 10 a.m. on June 8th from 9,000 feet due to the FAA regulations. As always, Pele is powerful, and you can't help but stand in awe and respect of her creation in real time. Always a blessing to witness, and thank you for sharing those photos. They really, they're striking. If anybody wants to see these, the high definitions are all on Hawaii Tracker. Just pull up this video, you'll be able to see the post if you search for it. And we got
another fantastic photographer right there.
Incredible. Yvonne, back at it again. I like these shots with Mauna Loa, shooting across the from Kinekikoe overlook, shooting across the caldera, up looking at Mauna Loa, especially when the clouds are so nice for photography without them interfering essentially, or just providing those offshore looks. It was really something special. So yeah, and the parking up here was crazy. Like trying to find parking during this whole thing.
Parking was a disaster. But we never even got to that side of the caldera this time. We never even went over there.
Yeah, I mean the parking over there, to find one, you'd have to, as she was saying, she gets there at 3:50 in the morning to grab a spot.
Yeah.
And there's just not that many spots down there.
Nope.
Here we have Keith. I like this one too. We're gonna start getting into a lot of galaxy and a lot of space shots and compositions with the stars and stuff like that, because it just opened itself up for multiple nights to it. Especially once the lava died off a little bit, that initial surge died off a little bit. We're able to really get these types of shots, essentially. So we're going to start seeing more of those. Really good composition there. Thank you, Keith. Yvonne back. Seeing 3 of our most prominent volcanoes in one shot is always amazes me. I guess she can catch Mauna Kea over there off the right. That's what she can catch.
It's a great shot.
I'm like, is she able to get walleye? No way. Okay, no, it's Mauna Kea over here.
Yeah.
But if you add the below sea level height of Mauna Loa to its surface height, it's the tallest and most massive mountain on Earth, a whopping 56,000 feet. Yeah, huge, absolutely monstrous. Its volume is just so massive. Yeah, it creates all the bending. We have those flexure earthquakes that's caused because of its weight. But Mauna Loa not doing anything right now. Very quiet, inflating steadily, and in a repose period it seems. But no threat there. In case I forgot to mention that one. Leah, we have at 6 on the 11th at 6:30 a.m. and you can still see there's a bunch of people out there, right? It was a rush, and I hope a bunch of people, everybody got their fill on it because it did end rather quicker than I expected. Really, I was like, okay, yeah, it's dying off, but we've seen this song and dance before. It could last a month or two, still, in a very low steady state. But we ended quickly. This was about the day that you were talking about where the lake changed, right? Between the 11th and the 12th.
Yep.
This picture from Lehua is just
a moment right here.
Yeah, this one from Lehua is just something special. Milky Way and Pele is glowing.
The Milky Way was so bright. Just getting out there at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, not even with a camera, just our own eyes, we could see everything so clear. We had a couple days of just amazing moments up there at night with the Milky Way.
Right, especially if you're willing to stay out there late, type thing, and wait for the crowd to thin, and be out there at like 1 a.m, stuff like that, and you can really get some crazy stuff. Especially if the weather's cooperating like it did for the majority of this eruption, that really opens the window for so much. Here we have one from Bo. Again, Milky Way. That one's just so clear. Like, I don't know how this has to be. He's doing some magic on this thing. How do you capture both of them so clearly without streaking them? Like, you're doing some sorcery in the Photoshop to make it happen. But it's really cool, and it's authentic type of thing in terms of like.
Shot right there for sure.
Right. I'm like, I'm not mad at this at all. It's cool type of thing. And I don't know how you did it, but man, some great photographers in the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group. And this was, Cody's awesome. He's a young cat. Just, he gets out there and does things that, you wouldn't expect young guys to be doing, putting himself out there, trying to be a real professional. And I really like Cody's work. And he had this here. Yep, Cody Yamaguchi.
Yeah, we got to meet Cody while he was up there. He shot pictures around us for a couple hours. Really nice guy, man. Really friendly, and I mean, his gear is something special.
Yeah.
Oh, some of the gear that we saw up on that rock. I mean, impressive. Yeah. Impressive. What these guys have to have to really dial in some of these shots.
Yeah.
And Cody is top notch.
Yeah, for me, I mean, he represents that new generation that photographers that are just reaching for that professional quality.
He's got it. He's there.
Yeah, it's really impressive stuff. All right, going on. Ernesto starts showing up heavily at this point in the eruption and has a bunch of great photography as well. And this one I like because it just shows that the clouds, how friendly they were, just so thin and no rain, essentially. Pure magic. This night was pure magic. The universe was putting on such a show. Lava, love, and the stars. Calls it a lava borealis. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yvonne back.
Saw a lot of him.
Oh, yeah? You ran into him a bunch?
Didn't see him personally, but in the chat and stuff, we'd run into him. Just busy.
Right. Everybody's trying to
balance. All of us were just running.
For sure.
Like where we were stationary, everybody was running around us.
Right. All right, and then Yvonne returns after my duties with the Eruption crew for PAL last evening. I headed home and slept 3.5 hours. I know that feeling. That was about my sleep schedule in the first beginning of this eruption. Before returning to the park, I liked the early morning hours the best and couldn't resist returning. So soon after I went home from the park, she's just a monster when it comes to these things. Like, if somebody's, I've seen so many people be like, she can't do that. There's no way. And she's like, no, I just did, like some of the craziest hikes in a day just for fun type of thing. So she's just something else. Next level.
Unstoppable.
Here we got Lance Page. I know you were doing a bunch of stuff with Lance, and he was posting some stuff on Tracker as well. He always does some great work. We met each other in 2018, me and Lance. It's so embarrassing because like I was considered media during the 2018 eruption by like a lot of guys. And I didn't have no equipment. I had a bad cell phone type of thing, and I was mostly using other people's, photography for what, we were trying to do. But they'd bring me along on the media tour, so I met Lance there with all of his gear, with like all these professional movie makers, and they're like, "What are you here doing?" I'm like, "I'm walking around with my phone. I'm gonna try and get dropped off at my house. Try and maybe move a few things while you're taking some photos, like stuff like that." But yeah, Lance is a good guy. High professional on this. We have so many professional photographers.
We posted up with Lance for a lot of this, probably more than half, and was working with Lance prior to this because Lance has those videography, the movie maker skills. His work is second to none out there. And working and talking with Lance, he's just such a nice guy that really has helped us become better videographers and streamers ourselves. So, and we got along really well, and we worked side by side for 4 or 6 hours at a time. He's a great guy and great at what he does.
Yeah, talented. All right. Yvonne was again up there every night, just like you, type thing. If my work duty's hitting, I stayed for a while in the park and admired the views. Even though the visitation is down and the eruption is deteriorating a bit, it's still very busy at popular viewpoints. But luckily the park has some nice alternatives, especially when you're up there so much, you get to scout like your own spots essentially. There's some nice little hidden away cubbies and things like that up there. You can snag some great views through. Beautiful short walk through the rainforest filled with the sounds and of the night brings you to several small viewing areas. And just sneaking those peeks through the foliage.
The one of the spots right before you get to the big opening at Waldron's, I think.
Right. Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, we're about on the June 14th right now. June 14th. So it's already cut off, and you can see how much that lava lake inside on this picture from Chaz has receded. It's about half, maybe a little less than half already. So we're at that point where it was the horseshoe shape, and then it fell back to the crescent moon shape as it receded, and we might be catching part of that horseshoe at this point. Great photo there, Chaz. Here we got one from Andy. This is a really good photo as well. I mean, there's just so many of these types of photos, and they're just so, you just see them and you're like, wow. And then you see another one, it's like, wow, but these photographers are incredible. And just to have them all up there, it's like I remember going up there, it's like meeting people again that I haven't seen in years type of thing. It's like, oh, hey, like try and meet up again of all the volcano junkies.
Kind of when we all kind of run into each other again at every big event, right? We don't see or talk to each other during a couple weeks or months because we're all working behind the scenes to produce stuff. And then all of a sudden something happens and it's the whole reunion every time.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Thank you, Andy, for that one. We have this one from Bob Martin, and this was just a capture from the V1 camera. But one of the things that was interesting on this one was the live camera from USGS. Maybe talk about that for a minute. They were able to actually have their live camera from the beginning of the eruption through the end of it, which is a first, I believe, for USGS.
It did not fail.
It did not fail. And they even integrated some like automated movement stuff to it when the fissure when there was so much action in the caldera. And then they started adjusting it to try and refocus essentially where there was activity. So overall, that was pretty impressive from USGS to be able to have that, especially since we've asked for it for I don't know how many years, essentially. Since
they got it right.
They got it right, and it's dialed in, and it's working, and it's not hurting any of their systems. So yeah, we appreciate the USGS trying to take advantage of the technology, essentially.
They had the camera put in the right place because other than some heavy weather that came in just rarely, and then the last day when it just would steam up and blur out, it was pretty much the best place they could have put it.
Yeah, for sure. Another one from Lance. This would be on the 16th. This is why Kilauea is my favorite place in the world. I'm always just absolutely stunned at how beautiful these eruptions are. Last night's massive lava fountains was so bright that it was creating a lava light rainbow Oh, that's what he's showing on the right there, lava light rainbow. That was lasting literally the entire night long. I just couldn't get over how incredible it was. So fun to hang out with Lou, Cody Yamaguchi, and Janice Way. Yep, the crew essentially.
Pretty much.
All right. Now we have one from Eric De La Rosa. This was really good. I mean, these sky shots are just phenomenal. And then close-ups of the eruptive vent on that western wall. Was inspired by such amazing shots by others on here. Definitely not as good as others. No, it's. I mean, you're selling yourself short. I would, love to be able to take photos that good. Mine are still the cell phone. I do the cell phone photos, and that's about it.
Those are good shots. I mean, I'm with you, man. I'm not the photographer at all. A whole different world.
When you start seeing those guys operate at their level and you see how they really do it, you're like, oh, yeah, no, I want no part of that.
Oh, no.
Anestro back at it again. A volcano within a volcano. It was amazing to see the transformation of this vent. Truly majestic. Yeah, that was the highlight for many people, including myself, was that western wall vent. Being able to climb the wall we were so excited at the beginning because we knew it was coming. As soon as it started climbing, it's like, oh, just keep going. Just keep climbing, right? Get to the top. It would be so cool if we could get to the top. But, we got it up there a decent ways to be able to give us a show at least. Maybe next time it gets to the top. And that has happened, right? I can't remember. It was, I should have researched this, but in the 60s, maybe, I'm not going to say a time. But there is that that southern eruption that got started down on near the Sulphur Bluffs and came up over the wall and erupted near the... what is it? The overlook there. The name's escaping me. The one we always go to, or you couldn't go to this time. But right there.
Oh, the Devastation Trail.
Yeah. The name's just. I'm forgetting the name right now. But anyways.
I'll let you struggle.
All right, and then we. When was this one? This one was the 17th. So when the clouds would open up, would open up except for a 5 minutes, and this was the view. So it was able to grab that shot there. And we did have a few. I think this might have been that day where you got rained out even, potentially, somewhere in there.
Well, we had shower caps on cameras I think at this moment here, trying to cover lenses and LCD screens, and shower caps were in full force at this point.
Right. We have a one from Tornado Tom, 617, same day. And just the detail on these things is quite incredible. Be able to pull these off from the distance that they're pulling it off from. Right? Or they're a mile away at least on any angle that you perceive on this one. That it could be possible, essentially, to take this shot. Not sure, it might be overlook, it might be further back, but really incredible stuff.
Yeah, that's it's hard to tell with that if it's Waldron's or the overlook.
Right.
I think I don't know, that's a tough one.
It's hard. I would bet overlook would be my guess.
Yeah, because the Waldron's kicks us out to the east more.
Right.
It's a lot of it still. I'm still trying to put together that 13 days myself. But it's a beautiful shot.
Back to Yvonne with the fire from within. Another day of surprises. Another day of surprises awaited everyone at the lava lake yesterday. A spatter cone was been growing from the active southwestern vent for the past few days. It initially collapsed but grew back effusively, providing lava flowing into the lake. A few hours ago, the spatter cone split open, and since then, lava has been effusively shooting out of it. Tutupeli definitely knows how to put on a Friday night show for everyone to enjoy. Yep, and that was really the thing, is it would, we were talking surges, pulses, but we also have to talk about the cone collapsing, because that kept happening too, and it would build up to the point where you couldn't even see it. It was more like a lava light coming out of a skylight when it was fully built, and then all that structure would be undermined and crumble away, and then we get to see the fountains again, essentially.
Yeah, we caught the second day in. We streamed for like 7 hours to finally get one big chunk to fall off. And then the next time we were at that moment where something was going to happen, we were running like 4 hours. We were beat up, and we got home. And I looked over at the USGS cam. I'm sitting right here. I look over at the USGS cam, and there comes another big boulder off of the top of it. I'm like, one more hour, we would have caught it.
Right.
There's so many moments, but you know.
We have another one from Yvonne, waiting for the right moment. Returned around 12:15 a.m. because it got rained out, so that was the day we were talking about with the rain, where the conditions weren't good. Admire the new spatter cone at the southern edge, so I woke up at 3:15 a.m. and headed back out. Incredible. The dedication a lot of these guys have, a lot of people have going up there is really impressive. To be out in the elements that much, right?
Yeah, they don't stop, and it's not just them; it's their equipment. You know,
Right.
it just takes a beating.
So here we go. We're in the final day of the eruption now, huh? The 19th. So Nestro.
Yep.
Nestro shows up with a Mahalanui, and this is taken on the 19th. We get to see that western fissure again. That cone is so pronounced now. It's over, 120 feet tall.
Right?
It's not the biggest thing on the planet, but it's a significant feature, in terms of
For us, it is definitely.
for the cones. Just to compare, fissure rate at its highest point got to about 220, and then it compressed down to like 180-ish feet, just roughly. Another one from Ernesto, and this one is on the 19th, and this one must be the 18th. I just have it marked wrong because it's still going off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless this is early morning on the 19th. I guess it could be. I guess he could be out late. He very well could be out there at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, because we didn't get off the summit the last day until 8 a.m. or so, 9 a.m. And it was 4 p.m. that day. It was still going until almost 2:33 p.m. So it could have been any time early morning.
Right. All right, final shot. This is the end of the eruption. And this one is, the story of so many people. We made plans. We made reservations at the Kilauea Military Lodge. We were going to stay up late and shoot photos of the lava fountains in the lava lake. The next morning, we were going to get up and go watch the sunrise over the caldera. As they say, the best laid plans of mice and men. On the way to Hilo, we heard on the radio that they turned off the lava. It seems USGS didn't pay their lava bill. And so they have these shots of basically the cooling inner lava lake, that most active lake portion. And really good shot there. But that's the story, essentially, as the photographers told it on Hawaii Tracker. And just wanted to try and, put it all together because it is something worth highlighting, all of their work and all of their dedication towards this thing. And we really appreciate all of those photographers, all the contributors, all the content creators that help us on Hawaii Tracker to keep the ball rolling, essentially, right? There's all kinds of things in the internet and the social media that we have to work around, and really they help us keep everything going smoothly, and we appreciate all of them. And I appreciate you, Lou, for tuning in today, being able to help us. Did want to throw out some thanks to the people in the chat. We rely on people like you, all the likes, subscriptions, and shares. They really go a long ways with that same algorithm thing that we were talking about just a minute ago. It's all it's all automated at this point, and it's what you got to do. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in today. And again, Phil will be back in a couple of weeks. I will be back next week, same time, same place. We will figure out something to do, at least do an update on the current activity, see if anything happens over the next week. Might see some lava again, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the eruption resumes. We got to look at the specifics and things like that. We have been essentially fooled before by the lava poking its head back out, but it's not the thing. So we will be vigilant on that front, and if anything crazy happens, I'll go live. I'm sure Lou will go live. Lou, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Just had somebody rolling by. I was trying to.
No, that wasn't nothing on you. My power flickered. I was making sure the internet's still going.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention you have a $20 super chat from Skagit. It says thanks for the photos, Flypod Dane and assistant Lou.
Yes, appreciate the support there, longtime supporter. Appreciate
And
that.
I do have 2 questions
Yeah.
that popped up here real quick. Do you anticipate the next eruption will cover a new floor or of the drop down block?
Not really. Every time it got to that new down drop block, and that's a pretty significant
Just
feature,
a little bit, not much.
right? It just got a little bit onto it, but that I assume she's talking about the next one after that, essentially. But that down drop block being included makes the volume needed to continually raise that level, the surface level of the lava, significantly higher, right? That down drop block is a big feature, and it's going to have to fill it in, including all of the lake. So every little bit higher, it's that inverted cone, but now you have a shelf off of the cone as well. So it's a lot more volume to add to get any amount of height added to the thing. So really, this eruption, I bet we don't have the height calculations or the volume calculations really yet. I'm sure they'll be coming out, at some point. But this isn't one of those eruptions where it's super mission critical and it's going to mean the difference between life and death. It's more just an academic footnote and things to know for later, essentially. But I don't expect the height to have changed all that much in this eruption. It added some for sure, right? But when you look at it on the cross section, and we look at the amount added, it's a graph that the USGS has. I don't have it with me right now. But if we were to look at that one, it would not be, you'd be hard to delineate between the previous couple of eruptions. It's not like the beginning ones where it's like hundreds of feet difference, right, in one eruption. But it is adding. It is going up there. It's probably not going to go that far that fast. It's going to get slower and slower.
That's it. That's all I got for you, Dane. You covered pretty much everything else. I just want to say thank you to you, and Philip's not here, but normally, it takes care of us and all the support you guys give us, and all the viewers that support us while we're up on the mountain doing what we do. So, thank you, everybody, from Anna and myself.
Thank you for joining us tonight and going over some of that footage of yours. That giant archive it's there is, I'm for sure it's got like 20 hours plus footage in it, but being
50.
able to 50, oh my. So yeah, I'm sure you could have made a lot more, but I appreciate you taking the time and chopping that up for us to go through and watch the development of that western cone, kind of the story of this eruption, and get to see it from start to finish, essentially from multiple angles, and get to see the stories from the Hawaii Tracker guys. Really appreciate them as well. But yeah, appreciate you guys, Two Pineapples, for all you do, and we'll be working with you more in the future. Got some stuff, but we're not yet ready to talk about, but it's going to be coming up, and we'll be doing hopefully some cool things. So I appreciate it for Lou. We are Hawaii Tracker. He has Two Pineapples. That'll do it. In case anything happens, unless something happens, we'll be back next week, or I will. Aloha, everyone.